Hello, it's me, Video Psych. Now, this video, of course, was a bit long time coming. Now, of course, I was planning on making this video in the past, but of course, there was the whole, you know, thing that happened earlier this year. And so I'm not going to try and at least talk about that too much, but maybe I possibly will. We'll see. So, accidentally bumped the table there. So, about racism. So, to start off, I guess I'll say that, we're all at least a little bit racist. You know, just because you're not prejudiced doesn't, of course, mean that you aren't racist. Of course, there's also racist jokes, which, I never really say any racist jokes. I actually don't even think they're funny most of the time. There's maybe a few funny ones, but, I just generally don't care for racist jokes. Because the things that are funny tend to be kind of true. And so when it comes to racist jokes, sometimes I don't really care for them. But anyway, so, man, one thing I always see that is just off sometimes throughout even my childhood is how some, black people will refer to themselves as African American. And I'm sure that you might agree with me on this, how, I just think it's weird because, it's just like, okay, so, like, are you actually from Africa? I mean, because then, yeah, you would actually technically be African American if you actually came from Africa. But if you aren't, then you aren't actually African American. You're just a Black American. Is kind of the deal. And, you can disagree with me on that. I won't delete your comment for that, of course. But, on a technicality deal, I would say that that's the way I think about something like that. And as far as police brutality on black people, well, the deal is, I think nowadays many times, police don't really beat on black people like they used to, not at least not nearly as much. And even if they do, I think lots of times it isn't for, just because they're black. At least not lots of times. However, I have seen, many police still to this day, they will still mistreat black people. But, as far as just, police beating black people just because they're black, I just don't believe that as much as I used to. I mean, does it still happen? Yes. It still sometimes does, but not to the extent that it used to. In fact, the weird thing is sometimes nowadays, like, man, I've talked to some of my black friends, etc., and they've never even met a racist white person before. I mean, back in like 1950-ish, I mean, there is a lot of discrimination going on towards black people, right? Like, a lot. And sometimes I actually still to this day see some discrimination. However, I sometimes feel or think that sometimes some black people might feel that they're the only ones being discriminated against. Even though they might know that they aren't, sometimes they might feel that way. I mean, shit, I've been discriminated against myself. I mean, shit, I'm not even white. In fact, if it was like the early 1900s, for somebody that learns like myself, they used to not let kids like myself into schools. They used to just think that we were special or something. I mean, even when I was a kid in the 90s, they used to think that I was like special. Of course, this isn't discrimination against, my skin color or the way I look, but still, I still have a bit of an issue sometimes with it actually to this day. I still actually get discriminated against to this day. In fact, now the newest deal about discrimination against me is that I'm a love doll owner. It's the deal. I don't think any of us can actually escape that kind of thing. Discrimination. We can't escape discrimination no matter what situation we're in. However, the deal with black people, of course, is that, especially even when, they were American citizens and they were born in American or born in America, sorry about that, they literally sometimes were just killed on streets. And, this was, of course, a time back when, black and white people didn't even go to school together. We had separate schools, we had separate bathrooms, etc. And I just think that's so weird and funny at the same time. It's just like, because I think it's just so fucking dumb that we couldn't even have the same bathrooms at the time back in the day. It's just like, what, my turd can't float next to yours? It's like the color of our shit is still the same. The color of our blood is still the same. I mean, because literally the only difference between somebody that's black and myself is that they have more what's called melanin in their skin. The melanin compound is what makes their skin black. And that's it. I also, used to know, excuse me, a mixed race person actually from work, half black, half white. And, he talked to me once about, how lots of black people actually tend to look at him in a very negative manner, like threatening sometimes. And sometimes he'll kind of get the same look from white people, but he's actually gotten it more so from black people, actually. And then I actually did once talk to him about how, I talked to him a bit about the natives, actually, even. How, I mean, some of it is, to do with, they don't think that it's right to, mix races like that, like it's wrong. Plus, sometimes, a mixed race person might look a bit white to somebody that's actually black. So to somebody that is actually full-blooded black or whatever, to them, this person is actually white to them. So if you see sometimes a mixed race person around, an area that has a lot of black people in it, he might get a lot of dirty looks. If they're kind of racist, because, to them, they think that they think that he's white because he's not black. But also to a white person, since he's not completely white, he's going to be black. And the reasons why lots of times, especially in the case of, black Americans might feel, hateful towards him is because just a simple fact that, in the past generations, especially with the natives, they eradicated the natives. They took all their land, obviously. We've kind of all heard about that at least. But not only did they do that, they also bred them out. Because now think of it this way. When's the last time you met a full-blooded native? I mean, I think for myself in my entire life, I've only met maybe 2, maybe 3 full-blooded natives. When I was in kindergarten, I knew one full-blooded native. That was a kid, actually. But that was the only full-blooded kid I've ever met. That was a native. And I taught him, was telling him about how, eventually sometimes these races will sometimes get eradicated, and then they will be bred out. It's a bit of a power thing is kind of what's going on here when it comes to something like that. They eradicate these races for more power, and they will even try to outbreed them sometimes, which is, I would say, a big part of the reason why, somebody, might look at him like that is because they disagree with something like that. And then he kind of thought to himself, he's like, that is true. I don't exactly see a lot of natives nowadays. Well, yeah, that's because of stuff like that. I mean, of course, would white America do that all over again nowadays? I mean, as far as the natives go, I mean, probably, because natives aren't even American, actually. At least not a lot of them. Because a long time ago, when we asked them to become, U.S. citizens, actually, a long time ago, they disagreed with those terms to become, American citizens, which is why they, in part, actually had such a hard time with white people, is because they never, ever became U.S. citizens. However, black people did become U.S. citizens, which is why eventually, you know, black Americans managed to finally, eventually, and with also a bit of help, which I will talk about in the next video here maybe, with also a bit of help, they eventually managed to, have basically the same rights as white Americans do, pretty much, because, in the past, like, black people couldn't even vote, which, of course, I just think is dumb, but, of course, that's just the way things were at the time. And even, actually, my grandfather said that even his grandparents disagreed with stuff like that at the time, way back in the early 1900s, but he talked about how his grandparents actually back in the day talked about how they couldn't do anything because they couldn't do anything against the government doing that shit at the time. I mean, it's just fucking insane. But, at the very least, nowadays we've actually come a long way. However, there's, of course, more and more issues. More and more issues. There's still racism out there, mistreatment, etc. And, it just sucks. It just sucks. It just sucks. I remember this one time, I was actually at the DMX Assess Center, and out of the blue, one day, this one black kid, who was one of my classmates, decided to tell people that I called him the N-word. And that's the reason why he broke out my window on my car a couple of times. Of course, they even found in the jury and everything that, of course, this guy was completely full of crap. However, this did take place. Now, not only do black people have to watch for racism from white people, but we also have to watch, racism from black people as well, because, black people can be racist as well. Just because you're black doesn't automatically exclude you from being racist. Although sometimes the things that, black people say about white people, is true, and they have a right to sometimes say the things that they say due to what happened in recent occurrences in the past. However, taking racist acts is still not a good thing. And I'm just glad that I got out of that situation, without getting hurt, because, sometimes when people make those kinds of accusations, people have actually gone killed over shit like that. I mean, I'm lucky that all this guy did was break out my window a couple of times. So at least there's that. Just one thing after another, let me tell you. Man. What else do I have to say about racism? And as far as the person that was killed by the police earlier this year, what's his name? Floyd, I think. You can correct me in the comments if you want. Yeah. God. I know his name. I think his name was Floyd, but anyway. Yeah, as far as that occurrence goes, and I'm not sure if this is going to offend anybody, but what I think of what happened that day is that it was just, that police officer was just a jackass. I can't necessarily say that he was racist. I mean, maybe he was at least a little bit racist, but I don't think that the reason why he killed that black guy like he did and brutalized him which of course wasn't a good thing to do, period. I just think that he was an idiot. I think that that police officer was just an idiot, is what I think. That's what I think about that. I think that that police officer was just a jackass and that he was an idiot. I mean, Jesus. But, and as far as discrimination nowadays against black people, I mean, I've even seen it even in my workplace. Because there was one time, and sometimes I even still see this, where, every time we start to get enough, people that aren't white, they're always all put on the same press. If we have more than 2 to 3, people that aren't white in our workplace, I noticed that they start to put them on one press with each other, and that's it. Like they separate them from all the white people, basically, is what I'm saying. And, I remember we had, at least 10 people that weren't white at one time, or close to that. And guess what? They were all put in that same area. And eventually I came up to the supervisor, and I'd been working there for a few years, so I decided to at least talk with him about it. I just came up to him and I said and asked, Supervisor, I have noticed that for some reason you guys have been putting these non-white people on C-Press only. And it's only been C-Press. I rarely ever see them off this press. So I'm just going to ask you guys, why are you guys only putting the non-white people on C-Press? And I said, I'm only just asking. And then, of course, this is what they said to try turning it around on me. They said, what, are you a racist or something? And I just said, that doesn't really answer my question. And I didn't say this to him. I only asked him this because, I had talked to these people, and they were all good people, In fact, I thought it was so weird one time when this one, non-white guy that came in, he was actually black, of course, and he came up to me. It was his first day. He said, hey, so where's the black team at? And then I'm just like, wait, what? Did I hear you correctly? The black team? He's like, oh, like the black shift and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, yeah, no, wait. Just hold on a sec. No, this is black shift, not the black team or anything like that. And then he said, yeah, but they told me to go to the press where there's all the black people at. And I'm just like, really? I mean, okay. I mean, like, I guess they're over there. He's like, okay, thanks. And I'm just like, what the fuck was that? Did my workplace like deliberately tell this guy to like go to the black team? I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I've seen some racism from time to time. I mean, I've even seen black people get in trouble over the stupidest bullshit. I even once saw this one black kid. He was actually mixed race, but they all called him black anyway, right? He was a mixed race kid. He came to class one day. Everybody was late, including myself. We're all late. And at the back of the line was him. He wasn't in the back of the line because he wasn't white. He was just back of the line, right? So we all come in. We're all late at basically the same time. And when we all came in, the teacher said, hey, you're late. Go to the... said, hey, you're like, go to the principal's office. He's like, oh, god damn. And then, of course, he leaves the class. And then I came up to the teacher. I was just so fucking confused at first. And I was just like, teacher, we're all late. He said, I know. And then once he said that, I was just like, okay. And I just walked off. And I was just like, oh my god, did he like just send him to the principal's office just because he wasn't white? I mean, Jesus Christ, man. You know, anti-racism has become like the new religion in America, at least one of the new religions. I mean, people are very religious about anti-racism nowadays. Lots of people are. And, you know, we can't react like we did in the past. If we react the same way that we did in the past, this country would fall apart. This country was founded on multiple races, not just the white race, on multiple races. I mean, black people also fought in the Revolutionary War, which is actually what gave us our freedom in the first place, by the way. This country was founded by multiple races, not just white people, for one. And two, it makes it a lot harder on the economy when you have all these, you know, American citizens that aren't white, that can't make rents and can't buy things, etc. And also it disrupts the peace. It disrupts the peace. You know, I mean, just like all the riots earlier this year, it disrupts the peace. This racism, it disrupts the peace in America. And it is just fucking stupid. It really is. And that's part of the reason why I didn't vote for Trump this time, because he was trying to separate all of the races in America and trying to make the white race dominant again. It was like, well, I mean, if you do that, I mean, shit's gonna happen if you do that, Trump. Even if I wanted to be the dominant race of this country, well, that wouldn't exactly end well now, would it? You know, plus, it's just a shitty thing to do to people. My God. You know, people really do need to learn from their mistakes. But some people just do not ever learn. That being said, I'll end this video. But of course, if you have any more comments and questions, just lay them down. And I hope that I did not say anything that was offensive. If I did, try to talk with me about it. And hopefully I can talk you down. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.